This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by Braintree. Mobile app development can be complex, but integrating your payments no longer has to be. With Braintree, your business can accept nearly every type of payment from any device with just one integration. Learn more at braintreepayments.com/knowhow. And by Corning. Corning's incredibly durable Thunderbolt and USB 3.0 optic cables are longer, thinner, lighter, and stronger. Go to corning.com/twit to save up to $130 on their superior Thunderbolt optical cables. On today's show,
you'll know how to Defcon.
Welcome to Know-How. It's the Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I'm Father Robert Ballosaire.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
And you may notice that we are not on our normal set today. We are actually not on the Defcon set.
No, and you may have noticed we don't know what to do with ourselves when we're sitting down.
This is so weird. It's interesting. It's kind of nice, but we've got a special episode for you today. We did want to take you through one of the projects that we found at Defcon. One of the things that I actually think is very representative of the Defcon spirit.
Yeah.
And so we needed a table.
Absolutely, because when you first told me about Defcon, I didn't really know what it was, but the first thing that intrigued me was the whole badge system. And you've gone for quite a few years, and if you're watching right now, you can tell that there's quite a bit of stuff laid out on the table.
Right, I've actually been attending Defcon since Defcon 11. So 11 was my first one. I've done it for 14 years, and it's been interesting to see how the badges have really sort of evolved. Unfortunately, I did a stint when I was living overseas, and most of my badges before 20 got tossed out, which I know I'm kind of bummed out about that. But what you can see in front of us right now is a really good representation of 20 up to 24, and we do this rotation where you go between a electronic badge, an analog badge. So for example, we had those little Egyptian-looking people. That's powered by a parallax, it's a propeller processor. Then we went to this 21, which was sort of a PCB board based on cards. 22 went back to a propeller-powered. 23, that was your first Defcon. We actually had the records.
Yeah, and so yours is yellow. Where's mine go? Oh, here it is. Mine was actually white. And
wait, did you used to have a bunch of LEDs attached to that?
I did have a bunch of LEDs attached to this, but I ripped them off when I pulled them out this morning. Because I don't know, the LEDs were falling off. So that's one of the things, is when you get the badge, you hack it, you try and figure it out. Because this was an analog badge, I tried to spiff it up a little bit with putting LEDs on it. But the color difference is because yours is a press badge.
I'm Inhuman. Last year I was Inhuman and you were Human.
How did that even come about?
It's just a thing.
It's just a thing. Okay, so this is a human badge because I forgot to register and had to buy a ticket. I wanted to support Defcon, is what it was.
And this year, I actually am both Inhuman and human. And the reason why I'm also human is because there was a Twit fan who was at the show, and while we were sitting in line waiting for the Inhuman registration, which, by the way, Defcon, you did it the right way. The Inhumans should have to wait longer than the humans. Totally. Do it that way. But he actually had an extra badge, and he gave it to me. So.
Yeah, super nice guy. I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. He gave me his card, actually. I don't have it with me. But he was a Ham Nation fan,
Yes, he is. So. Yes, he is. And, speaking of hams and Ham Nation, this is a special episode of Defcon. Now, we're going to be doing this every year where we'll show you a little bit of what happened at the show, but we wanted to bring home something more than just programs and badges. So we thought we should probably bring a person.
Person? We don't have people on this show ever.
No, but he's a different kind of person.
Oh.
He is the one, the only, he's been here before, Mr. Marc Smith, Smitty Halibut. That's right. Smitty, so good to see you.
How y'all doing?
Pretty good. Now, I'm
not a real person, so it's okay. Just kind of fold me up and shove me in your luggage.
He's actually a smart AI, folks.
That's right.
Very well done. Very well done. You were losing your voice towards the end of Defcon.
I still am.
You still are.
Yeah, you have like the movie narrator voice right now.
In a world where know-how talks about how to build a Defcon badge.
Gee, that's actually pretty dang good.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
that's perfect.
we may have a job for
How
you.
long does that last for, though? Just a few days after DEF CON?
Yeah, I've got a good career doing movie voiceover work for about 4 or 5 days after DEF CON every year. Every year.
Now, Smitty, the reason why we brought you on is because you are part of a team that works within DEFCON. It's actually now a limited liability corporation. The Darknet. Now, can you explain?
A little inside baseball there.
A little inside baseball, but can you tell them what is the Darknet and actually where did it come from? Some of our audience may think that the Darknet sounds familiar, and it actually is.
Yeah, so the DEFCON Darknet project, my elevator pitch for it is that it is an MMO in real life, like a massively multiplayer online game, just like World of Warcraft or a number of other games. It's an MMO in real life where we send you out on quests to learn different skills. If you've ever read the books Damon and Freedom TM by Daniel Suarez, this will make a heck of a lot more sense. But we have what is effectively a chatbot on steroids with a quest engine behind it. A quest engine, just like in World of Warcraft, you got those guys with the question marks over their heads. You go up to them and they send you out to yonder forest to come back with 4 rat pelts. And when you come back with your 14 rat pelts, then that quest person will give you a prize for having accomplished that person's task. Well, we're kind of doing the same thing at DEF CON. We are sending people out on quests to go learn different skills. Sorry, my cat just came in the room. We're sending people out to go learn different skills, like how to crack WEP on a Wi-Fi access spot, or how to pick locks, or we've even got one that's how to learn sign language. Right? We want to teach you a little bit of ASL. But the one that you guys are going to be playing with today is how do you solder? How do you hack on hardware? This was kind of one of the earliest quests that we did with the Darknet. And so to teach people how to solder, we had to put together a small, simple kit of parts and a board that we could sell to people, and they would use that in the hardware hacking village and assemble it, and that's how they would learn.
This is a phenomenal idea because this is essentially the idea behind DEF CON itself. The whole thing about DEF CON, and the reason why it works, even though you have people who have been doing security research intensively for the last 30 years and people who have literally just walked in the door, it's because there's this sort of there's this agreement that the experts will help the new people and the new people will bring new ideas into the group. It's part of the wonderful thing about DEF CON, which is no matter where you are in your journey of security, no matter where you are in your skill development as an electronics builder, you can come in and learn something. And that's exactly what the Darknet does. It forces you to talk to people that maybe you wouldn't otherwise talk to.
Yeah, and the thing that I found my favorite thing was that it didn't focus just on, oh, like you don't know software, well, there's nothing here for you. Right. And it's like, or you're not good at hardware, then there's nothing here for you. It's like if you want to improve a skill or something, there's somebody who's willing to help you, and there's probably a kit to play with, like the Smitty was saying, soldering kits and stuff. Like that was a lot of fun when we were just hanging out in the hardware village, soldering stuff, practicing, getting better at things that we weren't already good at.
And I remember the first couple of DEF CONs that I went to, I was incredibly intimidated, and it was it was one of the goons who kind of saw me sitting off by myself, and he's like, hey, you know what? When you come over here, and I'll show you how to solder a couple of things. And I thought that was phenomenal, and that's kind of the spirit of DEF CON. Smitty, I don't know if you see that, but like I sit in the hardware hacking village, and you've got people who are willing to share their supplies, their tools, their knowledge, and maybe once or twice in 14 years, I've heard someone be a jerk, but most of the time, people are very happy to share what they know.
Yeah, absolutely. DEF CON in general has been just a community that's been forming over the last 24 years. And the Hardware Hacking Village and all of the villages, really, they are there to teach people. They are there for people who do not know how to do that particular thing. And a moth just flew by. And to teach them what they need to know to get...
I think your cat says no more DEF CON. We're done with that.
Yeah, well, my cat, I had to let him out of the door. Otherwise, he'd just be meowing behind me the entire time. The villages are there. Wow. The villages are there to teach people the skills that they need for to get into the particular hobby. And there's so many of them now. The lockpick village was the first one. I think the hardware hacking village and the wireless village started up at roughly the same time. There's the car hacking village now. There's the IoT village, Internet of Things village. There's the crypto and privacy village. There's a biohacking village.
Biohacking, as well as social engineering. The social engineering.
Social
village.
engineering. Yeah, there are just so many different places that you can go that are specifically designed, specifically set up for noobs, right? Not said with a negative connotation, but just people who are new at this and don't have the background, but want to learn and aren't afraid to dive in and start playing with it.
Right, right. And I've actually even seen the evolution of the Darknet badge in just the last couple of years. I remember when it was just a tiny little like postage stamp sized board that had an IR LED and an IR receiver, and you could sync it with other players, and that was kind of like a point. So you would go to the lockpick village and you'd say, okay, I did my lesson, can you sync with me? You would go to the IoT village and you would sync it and you'd get another point. But this year, I don't know if you've got your badge on you, Smitty, but it got crazy advanced. Can you tell me a little bit about what went into this thing?
Yeah, hang on for 1 second. Let me get my badge.
It's super secret. He's gone. But it's cool to see the progression of the badges too, and the technology that went into it. Because this year's badge, you were saying, we found out was an Intel x86 chip on there.
So the previous badges, so from 20 and 22, the electronics badges, those were parallax. They're propeller-based chips. This actually runs x86. The skull-looking thing is an x86 processor, which opens up the door to just new things that we haven't done in previous years.
So it's like as technology progresses, the art and what you're capable of doing with the badge also progresses. It's pretty neat.
And before we go further, we do have to shout out to Lost.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Mr. Clark. He is the man. He is the guy who makes the art at DEF CON. He is the man who puts together the badges. And if you want to see what absolute dedication to a project like DEF CON is, look up DEFCON 24 Uber badge, because that thing was...
Was it cool? I didn't see
Oh
it this year.
Goodness.
Oh, yeah, it was a movie prop.
Yeah, Alex, if you could go onto the VidBlaster and look for it, it was, put it this way. A couple of times I invited him down to get a burger. In fact, I went out to get a burger with Smitty, and he was really, really busy, and I didn't understand why he couldn't come down until I saw it. I'm like, oh, that's why, because he was actually assembling those things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were pretty epic. I want to give credit where credit is due. Lost doesn't do most of the art for DEF CON. That's another guy named Neil Cronenberg.
Right.
So Neil does a lot of the art. Lost does the mystery challenges, all of the puzzles and everything that are around the con and on the badge and everything else.
The DEFCON 24 Uber, actually, it has like a little animated skull on it. Literally animated, not electronically animated, mechanically animated.
Like a little eyeball pops out and kind of wiggles around. It's really creepy.
It was
it's pretty epic.
All right.
Did we explain what the Uber badge is?
Oh, actually, that's a good point. Actually, you know what? Why don't you explain, Smitty?
So the Uber badge goes back to before I started going to DEF CON, which was DEF CON 5. I think it started with the Capture the Flag contest. Dark Tangent, the guy who runs DEF CON, wanted some way of honoring people who did something particularly awesome or won a contest or whatever. And so he created this thing called the Uber badge, which is the black badge, also known as the black badge. It is a badge that is given out to certain contest winners, and it entitles that person, well, not only to bragging rights, but also to entrance into DEF CON forever. You will forever be allowed into DEF CON without having to pay for it every year.
Yeah, and it is immediate cred. If you have an Uber badge, people know you did something pretty spectacular.
It's street cred.
But the nice thing about it is you can get an Uber badge for multiple things. So it's not just for the people who say win, capture the flag. It's not just for the people who are fantastic at the crypto challenge. It could be, hey, I made the best dang badge here. And it's it really rewards that whole the well-rounded individual that DEF CON wants.
Okay.
I've always liked that.
So neither of you guys have a Uber badge then?
No, I am responsible for 4 other people having Uber badges, but I don't have one myself.
I see. Team players.
I once sat next to a guy with an Uber badge. I think that's about as close as I'm ever going to get.
Did you ever touch it?
I did.
And then you never washed that hand again.
Actually, it's still, I haven't washed it.
Yeah.
This is the Uber hand.
Yeah, continue to never wash it.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, now, but we do want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing on today's show, because it is a know-how show.
Yeah.
And we thought it would be interesting to assemble, or at least partially start to assemble, one of these DC Defcon Darknet badges that you talked about. Alex, if you go to my close-up shot, this is one of the boards that actually goes into it. Can you explain to me what I'm looking at here, Smitty?
Yeah, so that right there is what's known as the display board. That side that's visible right now is the underside. Flip it back over. And that is the front side. So what you're looking at right there, the big rectangle up near kind of the upper right-hand corner, that right there is where the display is going to go. It's a very small, a little bit less than 1 inch diagonal display. Yep, there it is in the bag. And then the 12 buttons on the bottom are literally just little push buttons that, the finest of 1990s technology. It's a T9 entry keypad that you're going to be able to use to enter text into the badge. And then if you flip it over, preferably without dropping the display out, on the back side, there are a bunch of surface mount components. On the upper right-hand side, right underneath the display, is a wireless module. That is an RFM69HCW, which is a very small, very inexpensive wireless module. You talk to it over a serial port on one side, and it's got radio out the other side. If you look closely at the top part of the board, you notice that the solder mask, or not the solder mask, the ground plane kind of stops right above the mount holes for the display, right underneath all of that white text there. There is no ground plane there, but if you look over on the top edge, there is a small trace that goes around the outside edge. That small trace is the antenna. Yes, right around there. That small trace is the antenna from the wireless.
Wait, that small trace is going to give you enough for a 900 megahertz signal?
Yes, that's about a quarter wave
amazing.
at 900 megahertz. So these are 915 megahertz wireless modules, and we use them for communication between the badges. I'll talk about what they do in a little bit. But on the lower left-hand corner of the display right there, you see a bunch of surface mount areas that have kind of these boxes where the purple has been removed. So what we've done is we've removed the copper and the solder mask from the back side of the board, and then on the front side of the board, we've also removed the copper and solder mask in the form of letters and numbers above each of the buttons. And we have a bunch of what are called gull wing LEDs. They're surface-mounted LEDs, but they shine through the circuit board. So they're kind of backlighting the numbers on the circuit board. The current software we have we weren't able to finish the software in time, but the eventual idea is to do a Enigma style board where you press one button and a different one lights up, and you can do kind of an encryption technique that way. That is a feature that we're probably going to be adding to next year's software because we didn't have time to do it this year.
Now, I have to say, this is actually a beautiful piece of kit. It really is. I mean, the nice thing about this is you can give someone a Mylar bag filled with components and a link to where the assembly instructions are. And I don't think I saw a single failed badge. I saw 2 badges that had bad solder joints. But I mean, for the most part, because there are so many people around who are willing to help, most of the Darknet folk were able to put theirs together in a day.
We got you there eventually. It took a while on some of them. The reason I chuckle is because I was helping Dan Suarez solder his badge. Dan Suarez is the guy who wrote the books that all of this was based on, by the way. So it was an amazing honor to have Dan in our booth soldering his badge he spent about 5 hours soldering his badge. The reason it took so long is because the CPU board, which is on the other board that's in the kit, the CPU board that we gave him had a flaw in it, and I could tell just by looking at it that one of the pins had broken off of the CPU. It wasn't due to anything he did wrong. It was just he happened to get a bad chip. But we didn't notice it until he had already soldered it onto the main board. And so I had to go in there and desolder 40 connection points and replace that circuit board, and it didn't work, and I eventually just ended up breaking the board, just like snapping it in a whole bunch of pieces to get it off. It was hilarious. Good times.
Let's take a look at this. This is actually the processor board.
Correct.
I know our audience is going to look at this and they're going to go, oh, it's an Arduino, but it's not. This is not an Atmel Atmega chip. This is actually ARM-based, correct?
Correct. This is an STM32F103 derived board. There's got some more letters at the end. I can't remember what they are. But basically, it's an ARM Cortex M3 CPU. It's got 20K of RAM and 64K of flash. So it's much bigger. It's much more RAM than the ATmega 328 that most Arduinos are based off of.
Right.
It's also got a whole bunch of I/O, which is good because we need a whole bunch of I/O for what we're doing. It's more powerful. It's faster.
And that really matters because you're hoping to expand the badge's capability with just software, and so you need a little bit of extra headroom on the hardware in order to make that work.
Yeah. So we concentrated this year on upgrading the hardware. And we got the software running kind of just barely in the nick of time. Command Code did a fantastic job on the software. We just ended up running out of time. We couldn't fit as much on there as we wanted to. But we have a good hardware platform that we're very happy with. The badge is not going to be exactly the same next year. In fact, we've got a bunch of improvements we want to do on the assemblability of it. But the platform is going to be the same. And so hopefully, if we do it right, the same software the next year's software will be flashable on this year's board. So you can get all the new features that we're going to add to it next year by upgrading your previous board.
Can you actually show them your badge, the one that you have, or do you not have it with you?
Yeah, I looked for it. I couldn't dig it out of the box. I don't know where it is.
They can find it on the internet. There are some great pictures
they're all over the
yeah.
place. Check Twitter. Check DC Darknet on Twitter, and there are a bunch of pictures there of the badges. There's even a video of it doing its thing. So at DC Darknet.
I will say this. My original intent was I was going to buy 2 of these kits because I wanted Brian to have one so we could do some fun stuff here at the studio. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating here. I literally got the last Darknet badge. In fact, I should not have gotten the last Darknet badge. I was in line, and they ran out of kits 1 person ahead of me. But Smitty had one in his pocket, and he's like, just sell this one to him. So that's the only reason why we have this kit. Is because
you're outing me. Wow. That guy that was in front of you in line is going to hunt me down now.
No,
I don't have my badge because of you.
That guy, he came up to me afterwards because I was sitting in the Hardware Hacking Village. I was just soldering, and he goes, "Hey, dude, I'll give you $200 for your badge."
Oh, jeez.
What?
No.
He's like, I'm sorry, I would totally do that. I would give it to you because I feel bad for taking it.
But I'll do it for $600. So.
Well, no, I said, I'm like, look, I need it for the show. I can't give this to you.
I have a feeling that happened last year too. It sold out like in the first 6 hours of the first day or something.
Well,
like
I mean, the thing is,
you
brought what?
They sell out as fast as we can shove people through the line and take their money.
You brought 650 to the show this year, correct?
Correct.
So, and you know what? They could have sold 650 a day.
Yeah.
The way it normally works is they start the line in the morning, and within an hour of opening up the line, they're gone. And they only bring in that allotment for the day. So if you're not in line when the show starts, you ain't getting a badge.
Yeah. And in both days, there were people in line who didn't get a badge. We brought 450 the first day. We had some pre-sales that we were doing. So we put up a teaser quest before the event that takes you a few hours. And if you get to a certain point in the teaser quest, it gets you a code that is unique to you, and that entitles you to early purchase of the badge. You get to start buying the badge at 10 a.m., and then they go on general sale at noon. And that worked out really well. Except that between that and the general sale on the first day, we sold 450 of our 650 badges, and we had about 200 left to sell the second day. And it was literally, how fast can we get people through the line?
Right. And this is why we talked about the badges, because badges at DEF CON, that's the thing. I mean, you want to have as many badges as you can have. And I know Parsons had a badge, a car-shaped badge. There was the Bender badge.
I like the Bender badge.
Those are kind of cool.
Yeah, X and Andor did a great job on the Bender badges. Those are fantastic.
And so, but the badge that had the most prestige is if you had a DC Darknet badge. Just because you could do more with it, and people looked at it and like, I want that.
So where do you get them now that the show's over?
You don't.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Oh, wait.
So we are not selling kits. We won't sell you things after the fact, but all the files are available. So you can take the board file, upload it to oshpark.com, and get 3 of the boards fabbed, 3 copies of each of the boards fabbed and sent to you for a lot more than what we paid for them, but I don't know exactly what it would cost. I think it's probably about $60 to get 3 of them, 3 of each made for you.
And then you have to buy the components.
We also have links to all the different parts, so you can source all the parts yourself. It'll be a lot more expensive than what we were selling the kits for at the con, but it is a way to do it.
Yeah. And you know, the funny thing is people were asking me after DEFCON, they're like, well, why didn't Smitty just make a lot more of them? You know, he could sell 3,000 of them. I'm like, well, and I'm sorry, Smitty, if I wasn't supposed to tell them this, because this is some kind of inside baseball, but I'm like, the Darknet team, they went out and they bought out the inventories of all the components that they needed, and there just wasn't any more components, not at the price that they needed to get them at. So it wasn't that they didn't want to, it's just that it wasn't there.
Yeah, we were shooting for about 1,200 badges this year, and two things limited us. One is that we could not, there were two parts, I can't remember exactly which ones they were, but there were two parts that just were not available in quantities to go past about 700 badges. And the second one is that all of this money is coming out of our pocket.
Right.
My wife in the other room is probably grumbling or sighing in relief now that I have replaced the roughly $6,000 I took out of my personal savings account to buy this, and I am only one of 4 people that took out roughly similar amounts of money. So we went into Hawk by about 20 grand of our personal cash to go buy these parts to put together these kits to sell. Now, we very clearly and very easily made that money back and to have some profit to left over for next year so that we won't have to go into personal Hawk again. Yeah, it's anytime someone says, you should have brought more, I'm like, great, lend me 10 grand and I'll go buy more.
Exactly.
Right? Lend me 10 grand for 3 months and we can talk about it.
Yeah, Defcon Kickstarter, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, because people are like, well, I mean, I don't understand why it would be a risk. I'm like, well, it's still money coming out of your bank account. And I mean, if there was some kind of disaster, I don't know, the parts explode, they burst into flame, or DEFCON doesn't happen, you're now stuck with that bill. So it's not inconsequential.
No, I think it works out in the end because the people who are really dedicated really want one. It seems like they're able to get them. But this isn't something for beginners either. Like I'm looking at, I remember one from last year.
Smitty, what do you think?
It's supposed to be.
Is it?
Yeah. We went a little overboard, and we're gonna back off on that. Next year, we already have a document full of feedback from this year, and one of the very clear pieces of feedback what we have is that the board needs to be much more targeted toward beginners, and we're going to fix that next year.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure you could if you had Smitty over your shoulder helping you out.
He can only stand over the shoulder of 4 or 5, not 5 or 600.
And looking at when you first did your soldering, looking at you and saying,
here we go.
Your soldering is bad and you should feel bad.
So this was the very first board.
I did not say that.
You did. You totally did. I remember because I came over, it was working, and you're like, oh, that's bad. That's really, really bad. And it is. It's a horrible, horrible soldering job.
But I didn't say you should feel. Oh man.
To my defense, I was using a butane soldering iron, which is totally the wrong thing to do.
Wrong tool for the job.
It is absolutely wrong. I've learned a lot since this DEFCON, and you know, you've heard us talk about this on Know How. Whenever we're soldering, we say, please don't tell Smitty about this, because Smitty is sort of my soldering guru.
No, absolutely.
Your spirit animal.
Yes. Speaking of my soldering spirit animal, when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of this. We won't be able to get the entire badge, but we wanted to show you some of the more interesting parts of assembling this kit, especially surface mount.
The surface mount LEDs?
This has been a dirty word.
Don't fear the surface mount. It's good.
Absolutely fear the surface mount.
Don't fear the surface mount. You can do this.
I'm going to do this with you by my side. Brian and I are going to try to get this in.
Well, I heard the only way that you can get them to stick to the board is with your own tears.
Your tears and blood.
Unicorn tears, actually.
Unicorn
tears. They work best.
All right, we will be right back with unicorn tears, but first let's go ahead and take a moment to thank a sponsor of this episode of Know How. Let me ask you a question. Are you on the internet? Of course you're on the internet. Do you want to develop an app? Well, of course you want to develop an app. Everyone wants to develop an app these days. But what if I told you that there was a way for you to take that work that you're putting into your site or your service or your app and to easily get paid, to easily make financial transactions without having to set up a back-end server, without having to pay someone to make sure that all your code was up to date, without having to do a long, drawn-out integration? Well, folks, that's not a fantasy. That's Braintree. Braintree is the easiest way for you to get paid on the internet. By next year, maybe even next week, there could be a whole new way to pay. Maybe it won't be Bitcoin anymore. It won't be credit cards. Maybe it will be the next cryptocurrency or the next Apple Pay, or maybe even both. But fortunately, Braintree's full-stack payment platform is easily adaptable to whatever the future holds. And that means that you can adapt too. They accept everything from pounds to PayPal to that next big innovation from any device with just one integration. And when that new payment method comes along, all you have to do is update a few lines of code. It's completely secure, it's completely easy, and it's completely ready to integrate now. This means no late nights, no complicated recoding, no stress about staying ahead of the curve. Braintree Payments is here to help. Braintree Payments will give you simple, secure payments, code that you can integrate quickly. It supports Android, iOS, and JavaScript clients, and they've got an SDK in 7 languages: .NET, Node.js, Java, Perl, PHP, Python, and Ruby. It's elegant code with clear documentation. If you're not using Braintree, you're just working too hard. Braintree gives you an easy way to accept multiple payment types with one integration. Integrating it into your app is really as easy as inserting a few lines of code. Learn more today at braintreepayments.com/knowhow. That's braintreepayments.com/knowhow. Do it right. Do it easy. Do it with Braintree. And we thank Braintree Payments for their support of Know-How. Okay, Smitty, so we're going to go out of order because the first thing I should be doing is soldering on my board. We're not going to do that because they've seen us do that before. The thing that they want to see is surface mount. What's the first thing that I need to know about surface mounting these LEDs?
Okay, so you're going to attack the surface mount first. All right. Do you want to do the LEDs or the resistors first? The resistors are smaller. They're going to be more of a pain in the butt, so let's get them out of the way.
Okay.
Okay, do it.
Okay.
Come on.
Is
You can do it.
this board or is it that board? Is it the board that Brian has right now?
No, it's the other one.
Okay.
Wait, I can't tell whose hands those are.
That's
those are
Brian's hands.
Those
Just
are Brian's
look
hands.
for the hair. There's so much
The
hair.
hair. The hairy one is Brian. Got it. Okay. Yeah, the one in the Panavice is the display board. So the resistors, actually, you might have to. Nope, it's on that side. That one. There you go. It's right underneath the clamp on the left-hand side of the board. There are 3 spots. Yeah, right in there. So I don't know if you want to turn it around. There you go.
Actually,
You might have better luck turning that thing by 90 degrees. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay.
So those three surface mount pads down there on the bottom of the board, those are resistors, and then there's a 4th one kind of halfway up the board on the right-hand side.
So I've got this, and that right there.
That one right there, correct.
Okay.
They're all the same resistors, so you don't have to worry about which one goes where. You just need to put one resistor in each of those spots.
All right. So you want to hand me the resistor pack?
Are these the resistors?
No, those are the LEDs.
Are these the resistors?
There we go.
These little things?
Give me those. I know. And
Also
look
known as flea poop.
Look at what am I
Seriously.
supposed to do with this?
You
Seriously.
start crying now.
What the?
Yeah.
What are you
We'll get
doing to
there.
me?
We'll get there.
Okay,
We'll
all
get.
right.
Well, you can do it. You
By
can
the
do
way,
it. It's okay.
People should know that the reason why it's in this little package is because that's actually designed to be fed into a machine that will automatically put them down. Obviously, I'm not a machine, but yeah. Smitty, you
you're
said
gonna solder like a machine.
I'm going to solder like a machine. You said that if people are going to be doing SMT, they need tweezers.
I can do 805s with my fingers, but that's because I have no sense of temperature in my fingers and I can burn without pain.
All right.
I highly recommend you get tweezers, yes.
Let me ask you this, Wendy. I know how to read resistors by the bands, but obviously there's no bands on something this small, so you just know by the packaging, or how does that work?
There are numbers on there, so those are going to be...
Go figure.
Good look at that. You have your loop.
I
You
cannot.
can get out to read those.
Hold on, wait a minute.
Those are going to be labeled 470. And just like the color bands, you do have a loop. Nice.
You thought I was joking. Oh yeah, okay, there they are. I see them.
So it says 470 on those. And just like the color bands on a leaded resistor, on an axial resistor, the 4-7 are the 2 most significant digits of the value, and then the 0 is the power. So
Okay.
it's not 470 ohms, it's 47 times 10 to the 0. 10 to the 0 is 1, so it's 47 times 1, so those are 47 ohm resistors.
Okay.
I'm just going to trust you. All right. So before I do this, someone in the Hardware Hacking Village told me that I want to tin one pad. I thought I would tin both pads. He said, no, just tin one.
No. So what you're going to do, there are 2 pads on the board, right? So the left side and the right side. You're going to take one of them and you're going to put some solder on that pad. And it's just going to be a little tiny bubble of solder. You don't need a whole lot. And then, so let's say they're kind of down here like this. Then you're going to put a little bit of solder on one side. Then you're going to put the soldering iron into that solder blob. And you're going to come in on the other side with the resistor in your tweezers. Alex, can you switch back to me? So you got the solder blob over here. You're gonna come in with the soldering iron on one side. Then you're going to take the component with your tweezers and bring it in. So the solder is melted because I've got the iron in it.
Right.
Then I'm gonna put the component into that solder and kind of slide it in with the tweezers and make sure it's in place. And then I'm going to take the soldering iron out and continue to hold that in place until the solder cools. It should only take a few seconds. Then you remove the tweezers. Now the component is held in place by that one side. You're then going to take your soldering iron and solder and go in and solder up the other side of the component. And now it is being held in place on both sides.
How worried do I have to be about burning the component as I do this?
That component you're not going to have to worry about.
Okay.
The only components you're going to have to worry about burning out are going to be active devices like transistors and chips. And even then, they are incredibly heat resistant.
Cool.
Okay. Is there a trick for me to get this out of the packaging other than just popping it?
Yeah, I would. I usually use tweezers to kind of get underneath the cover.
Pokey tweezers.
Yeah, I got the pokey tweezers. Let's try this.
I would use pokey tweezers for these.
Okay, so because there's a layer of plastic above it, so I have to poke through that?
My recommendation is to point it down toward the table before you start pulling it out.
Yeah, if these fall, we're not finding them.
They're gone.
We just go, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, flea poop. Yep.
And do you package extra parts with any of this, or is every part you need?
Yeah, every part you need. At the con, we have a bunch of extra parts with us. We've got a little parts bin with all the different components in it that we can hand out spares. But obviously,
not now.
I can't hand you a spare from San Luis Obispo to Petaluma.
Please. Oh. We haven't mastered that yet.
Other side. Other side. Where is it? There it is.
High five.
If you go to my shot, Alex. So this, yeah, no, I'm not joking. That's actually the component. Are you kidding me, Smitty?
I am not kidding. You can do this, Padre.
Really? Oh,
you can do
goodness.
this.
Okay, all right. So is there a preference on which side I'm going to tin?
It depends on which handed you are. I'm left-handed, so I come in with a soldering iron on the left side and put a little bit of solder on the left pad.
Got it.
It looks like you're right-handed, so I would do the right side.
Okay, so I'm just going to
warm that little pad up.
Get this nice and clean. Don't want any junk in here.
Keep it clean.
Keep it tight. All right,
you're good.
Tin it a little bit.
No. Don't tin the.
I know. I just wanted to get a little bit so I can transfer the heat.
Okay. All right.
There we go. There we go.
Hey, listen to Smitty, Padre.
I know. He's my spirit animal.
My spirit solderer.
Your hand's in the way, so I can't see it.
Just
Yep,
believe.
that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
So now we're gonna get. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna have to do it reverse-handed so that I don't get in the way of the camera.
Oh,
so yeah, let's make it more difficult. Let's just, because it's not already really hard to solder flea poop.
Go do one of the other ones then, because you want the soldering iron to be on the same side where the tint pad is. So tin the left side of one of your other resistors there.
Okay. Let's do this one.
All right, easy does it.
I have a recurring nightmare that looks a lot like this.
Are you saying I'm in your nightmares?
Oh, yes. I solder in my nightmares, and you should see them. And every one of my nightmares ends the same way. Smitty saying, that looks bad and you should feel bad.
Right, just like what he said to you at the first Defcon you were at.
That's exactly
That scarred
what I
me for
said.
life. That was my first experience of Defcon, the hardware hacking village. All right, so I've got my flea poop, and I've got this, so that's nice and solid.
Oh, it's so tiny.
I know, you can't
Reheat the
see it.
solder that's on the board.
Here we go.
Easy now.
All right, and then just goes right in.
Put that in there. And done.
You don't solder
That's
the
it.
other pad?
Wow.
You do solder the other
now I
pad.
do.
Okay,
Now I
okay.
do. Okay.
But
So
you do it after.
placed
You
it.
do it after you get it held in place by the first one.
I just realized this is so not tight. The entire assembly is jiggling.
What, does that make it difficult for you?
A little bit. Just a tiny. It just,
Where did you...
4880. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, didn't we get this piece off of Amazon?
We did.
This holster
This was like a $7 holster.
Yeah.
They work really well
Going to need that.
to keep it tight.
Yeah.
Were you going to respond to somebody in the chat room?
Yeah, I was 4884. No, I don't generally tin. So he asks. So in general, no tinning for smaller components. No, I don't tin surface mount ahead of time because the reason you tin ahead of time is to make sure that you've got a good solder flow. And the reason you wouldn't have a good solder flow is if you haven't put enough heat into it. These components are so tiny just first contact with a soldering iron, and you'll get plenty of heat in them for everything to flow. And besides, the end caps of the chip resistors are kind of already tinned anyway.
Now, Smitty, we get this. This is a recurring question on know-how. I use 2 different irons. In my lab, I've got a Hako that also has a reflow. It's got a nice little heat gun on it.
Okay.
And then my travel kit is I have a 40 and an 80-watt Weller. What do you carry with you?
Oh, I just saw you drop that.
Shut up. No, it did. I got it's right here. It's right here.
Long.
It's okay. I see it. I see it.
So what do I use? Well, so I was blessed to grow up in the Silicon Valley during the 80s and 90s. And I worked at a place called Haltech Electronics, which is
I love that place.
Which is different than Halted Electronics. It's different than HSC, but it's very similar. HSC is still around. Haltech is not. The one that I worked at was in Mountain View, right near the corner of Shoreline and 101. And when I was working there, it's the same kind of store where they buy like pallets of junk, pallets of electronics stuff that's been surplus, right? And then they bring it in for, they buy it for pennies on the dollar, and then they sell it to people who know what it is and know how to fix it or whatever. In any case, on one of the pallets were a bunch of Metcal soldering irons. Oh. And for people who know what Metcal soldering irons are right now, they know where this is going.
Legendary.
I bought the soldering iron. At the time, these were $800 to $1,200 soldering irons. And I bought mine for $20 because it was broken. Well, the Metcal uses radio frequency energy. It uses RF energy, not DC energy going down the wire. I don't fully understand the magic of how it works, but they use RF energy to go down the wire. And so it means that if you try and turn it on without a tip in it, you'll blow out your transmitter. It's just like trying to transmit on a radio without an antenna or with a mistuned antenna. And the output transistor.
People don't believe me about that when I tell them never to turn on a radio without a load on the antenna. Right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, especially if it's transmitting. If it's receiving, it's not a problem. But if it's transmitting, never transmit without an antenna. But that's exactly what had happened to this Metcal, is that someone had turned it on without a tip in it. And so the output transistor was blown. Well, I happened to be in an electronics surplus junk store that has a whole bunch of transistors on the back wall. So I opened it up, found the broken transistor, went out and bought a replacement part for 25 cents, and sitting there at the counter where I was working, I replaced the final output transistor and got myself an $800 Metcal for $20.25.
See, those are the kind of stories that I remember from growing up in the Silicon Valley. There was another place called Weird Stuff, which is kind of the same thing. It was a bunch of broken stuff, but if you knew what you were doing, you could say, oh, well, that's broken in this way, and this is broken in that way. I bet I can make one good one. That's how I got my first computer.
That's cool.
Yeah. So my soldering iron is a Metcal. The model of, that was more than 20 years ago. I'm old. Doing the math, I think that was 25 years ago. So the soldering iron model that I have, and I can't remember the model number off the top of my head, but it goes for about $400 on eBay now, $300 to $400.
I was actually just going on eBay and searching Metcal soldering stations, and yeah, they range from quite a bit. It looks like there might be a couple of broken ones though. So should I try and repair one?
Well, it depends on what's broken with them, right? If it is the final output transistor, then that's pretty easy to fix. But Metcals are like soldering with butter. They are just a dream to work with.
Why would you do that?
Why would you solder with butter? Why would you?
I did that once. It did not work well.
Yeah, I solder butter to my bread every once in a while.
Every once in a while. But no, if people are trying to buy a reasonably priced but very good soldering iron at this point, am I allowed to talk about brands?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay. The brand that I would recommend at this point, Wellers are good, but Hako, Hakko is kind of the brand that everyone's going toward.
I love mine.
They are,
and they're cheap. They're really not expensive.
They're inexpensive. Yeah. The one I was going to recommend, I don't remember the full model number, but it's got 888 in it. Mumble 888. If you just Google or search on Amazon or your favorite online vendor for Hako 888,
I think that's actually the one that we got for know-how.
Yeah, it's a great soldering iron, and it's about $100. And that's for the base and the soldering wand and the stand to put it in with the kind of the Brillo pad looking scrapey thing. And
what about those people who obsess and like they're just getting into it and they think they need to spend $600 on a soldering station?
First off, you don't need to spend $600 on a soldering station. I still recommend spending your money on the Hacko. But if you, especially if you're just starting out, the Hacko is absolutely phenomenal for beginners. If you're going to spend all day, every day soldering, then you might want to invest in a better soldering iron. I like Metcal's. There are a lot of people I know who are absolutely heart set on Weller. They're a good brand. I have a Weller from very old, long time ago. But if you're going to spend $600 on a soldering iron, I would probably go with a Metcal.
And you know, there are people who they'll buy like the old Radio Shack special for $4, and you know they work if you're just soldering wires together. But like this is actually a decent Weller, and this one was $11. You can buy this for $11 on Amazon.
I think somebody got that one for my birthday last year.
I got you a much nicer one.
Oh, did you?
This is my travel one because I knew this went to Defcon, and I just assume anything I bring to Defcon, someone is either going to break or someone's going to steal.
Or burn it through the plastic table.
Burn it through a plastic. Yeah, that one's gone. I started smelling it. I'm looking. I'm like. And he's like, oh no, I could get this off. I'll just rub it off. I'm like, no, dude, that's gone. You can have it. That's my gift to you. You can have that.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, did I just emotionally scar that person like Smitty emotionally scarred me?
Probably. They're having reoccurring nightmares since Defcon. Just Padre shaking his head.
See what happens, Smitty? This is the kind of thanks you get from coming on Know How.
I hate you, Padre.
All right, so this is right here. This is the fourth one, correct? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, actually, when you go through some of the components there, so Smitty can help you identify what they do.
Okay, sure.
All right, let's see what we got here. We got this board, main board.
Okay,
here.
so that is the main board of the badge. It carries the CPU. You can see the two long rows of headers down the middle. That's where the CPU module goes.
Right. It says STM32 right here. That was the board Padre was showing earlier, right? Yeah.
Correct.
That
Correct.
configuration. Yeah.
Yep. You see the 6, actually 12. There's 6 on the top and the 6 on the bottom, kind of the big holes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those. Flip it over. Those go on the back side. You can kind of see the clips on them. Those are battery clips. That's how you're going to connect the AA batteries to the badge.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah. Now there's a little bit of an order of operations here because you can't solder the battery clips in when the CPU board is on, but you want the headers in because then you can't solder. It's weird. Read the instructions and make sure to do it in the order of the instructions.
Yeah, we're going out of order here just because we.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Well, before you even start soldering stuff on here, what are all these letters on the back? They don't make sense.
So let me give a little bit more credit where credit is due. The gentleman who designed this board is a guy named Crux, and he's been designing. He designed the last 4 of the total of 5 Darknet badges that have ever been done. Once they started turning purple, those were Crux designs. Okay. So he also likes to drive people up the wall with crypto challenges in the fun way, right? So he puts these little random crypto challenges all over the board. There's one on that board. There's actually I think there are 2 on that board because you got some more down at the bottom.
Down here.
And then there are some other weird-looking characters on the board that Padre's got in the lower left-hand corner of the board as it's oriented on the screen. All the numbers and punctuation and everything there.
See, that looks like Futurama alien language right there.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I know nothing about these cryptos that he puts on there, but that is another little challenge that Crux put in there. And so, yeah, that's what all that writing is. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't know what it is. I haven't gone to decode any of it. But that's Crux's little present to you.
Okay. It probably says your soldering's bad and you should feel bad is what it says on there. By Smitty, I think, at the bottom.
By Smitty, yeah. The attribution is by Smitty. So why don't you flip the board over and let's take a look at some of the other components there. All right, so down at the bottom, there are kind of the 2 pads there, 2 pads on the other side, and then 3 pads in the middle, right?
Right.
So the one on the left is going to be a green LED. and that is a status LED. Right now, the only thing we have it programmed to do is indicate when you have a new message waiting for you. I haven't talked about what the badges do.
Oh yeah, actually, we should
Okay, so yeah, let's go back to a high level design of what these badges are. So we've got the STM32, which is the CPU. It's going to be doing a lot of the horsepower. It has an infrared transmitter and receiver, which were 2 of those 3 components down at the bottom of the board. It has a radio module, so it's talking wireless. It's not in the 2.4 gigahertz band. It's on the 915 megahertz band. We very intentionally avoided 2.4 gigahertz, expecting it to be just a complete insert word I'm not allowed to say on the radio here.
Wait, is 900 ISM?
915 is ISM, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 915 and 433. Those were the 2 options. We went with 915 because the antenna is shorter. We could actually fit it on the board.
This really is a nice kit. Okay, but before we get into that, let's go ahead and start because I think I got these.
Okay.
Now the way for me to test it is I could actually touch a multimeter, continuity meter, to each of the ends of the pads, and I should get continuity through the resistor, correct?
More importantly, you should see 47 ohms through the resistor. Yes.
Okay. Now, and we'll do that in a bit. Let's go ahead and do the lights because the lights scare me. Yeah, you want to hand me those?
Lights are easier than what you just did.
So, yeah.
The LEDs are way easier than what you just did. You can do those with hands.
Because they're LEDs, they are going to be they're polar. So you do have a positive and a negative. How do I know which side is which?
That is true. So you do need to make sure that these go in the right orientation. The resistors don't matter. You can put them in either way. It doesn't matter. So if you look at these LEDs, you will note that there is a little kind of a scallop taken out of one side. Do you see? Can you see the kind of
hold on.
The hole taken? It's a get the loop out.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
So that scallop marks the cathode.
Okay.
And as we all know from our electronics courses, the cathode is the side of the LED that has the bar, not the side that has the arrow.
Right. And so if you look here,
so if you look there, you can see that there should be little LED indicators on the board on top of each one of those. And all of the arrows point to, well, what is now the lower right-hand corner of the screen, but is the left-hand side of the board, right? And that is the side, the side that the arrow points to is the cathode. Think of it this way. The arrow is pointing in the direction of current flow.
Ah, okay.
Right, that's the way I think of it. The arrow points in the direction of the current flow, and therefore, that the direction that the side that the arrow is pointing to is going to be your cathode, because the cathode is the negative side, where the anode is the positive side.
I don't know if you could ME any closer into that, Alex, so that people can actually see, because they did a really good job of labeling everything on this board, and there's actually a little graphic right on top of each one of these. There you go. Ooh, so Smitty. That means my positive would be towards the top, correct?
Correct. But remember that the mark that's on the LED is the negative side.
Right. So on this, so if I had this orientation, if you were looking at this board and you were trying to assemble your own, all of the scalloped sides of the LED would go towards the bottom of the board.
Correct.
Okay.
And all the LEDs are oriented the same way.
See, this is another one of my reoccurring nightmares where I'll solder something like this and then realize I have them all flipped and I have to go back and desolder everything.
I guarantee you that is a heck of a lot easier than the problem that I ran into with Dan. That Brian, hold up that little that CPU board, right? There are 40 pins on that thing. Right, he got that soldered in, and then we found out that one of the pins on the chip, the little square chip in the middle, was broken off. That pin right there, actually, the one you're pointing at on the edge, kind of the lower, the top side of the lower left-hand corner row of that thing. One of those pins got broken off and kind of smushed into the pin next to it.
Oh no!
And it was gonna make the badge completely unusable because the pin that broke went to the infrared receiver. The pin that it squished into went to the radio module. So it was going to short out those 2 pins, and that was not going to work out. So I went through and I had to unsolder all 40 of those pins. That was a nightmare. That's where your nightmares come in.
Smitty,
yes, sir.
How many of these LEDs should I have?
16. How many do you have?
Did some flea poop fall on the floor?
No, it's not like I peeled back the plastic and that popped up in my face. That would never happen. That would be a noob mistake. That would never happen to me.
No.
So Alex, please roll back the tape and go back to the point where I said pointed toward the table.
It was pointed towards the table, but then it bent and then it popped forward.
There's so many laying on the table right now. So there's supposed to be 16.
16.
12, 14, 16.
It's not the end of the world.
How come it sounded like you went 12 and then skipped to 14 and then 16?
It's new math. Well, no. 2, 4, 6, 8. Wait.
Cleaners will find
10,
it.
12,
PC guy
14.
8080.
There's 15. There's 15. 15's pretty good. Oh,
Wait, there it is. There it is.
See, it's not flea poop, folks. How about that? Although I may
These
have-
are bigger. These are more like mouse poop.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Hey, you know what? We're going to get right back to this because I do want to show you some LEDs. But before we do that, let's go ahead and thank another sponsor. Now, hey, Brian.
Yeah.
You know what I remember back in the day?
Well, a long time ago.
You know, dinosaurs and
Like
such.
25 plus years
Oh
ago.
yeah. Oh no, but after the dinosaurs, but before we got to the modern computing era, I remembered trying to put my peripherals outside of my workroom because they were kind of noisy. You know, I liked having my computer outside, and maybe I'd put a CD drive, an optical drive, on my desk.
A CD what? I'm kidding.
Wow.
I'm kidding. I'm pretty
You're
old
gonna play
myself.
me like that?
Yeah.
You're gonna play me like that? Well, you know, you used to be able to do that because you could use really long extension devices, you know, a couple of repeater boxes in order to get your various serial, not even USB, but serial and parallel devices far away from you. That kind of changed when we started going high speed. I mean, when we've got USB 3, when you've got Thunderbolt, the tolerances are a lot tighter, and if you start going beyond the spec, the devices just won't work. Or if they do work, you start getting retransmission errors, which destroys your throughput.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not a problem anymore, is it?
Not really, because I mean, there is a way. There is actually a way to get high-speed transfers, super durable cables, to put all of your peripherals a reasonable distance away from your computer.
It's this.
And it's that.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's from Corning. Now, Corning knows fiber. That's their background. That's where they came from. And that's exactly how they've used their technology.
I mean,
they've leveraged their knowledge to create these.
Look how poorly we've jammed it back into this box.
Yeah, now I would normally never do that to a fiber optic cable because a fiber optic cable, you'd start shattering the fiber. It would look horrible. But with Corning, with these Thunderbolt cables, and with this absolutely phenomenal way of creating these things, it means that I can get maximum throughput while at the same time maintaining the integrity of my cable through very difficult runs. Now, this episode is not just brought to you by Corning, it's brought to you by the very technology that Brian holds. Whether you're into high-end video, photography, audio production, or computing, their optical cables will allow you to build a convenient workspace through a superior long-distance connection. That means you can do what I used to do back in the day. Put your computer a distance away from you so you don't get the noise, but you've got all your peripherals right next to you where you need them. Their USB 3.0 and Thunderbolt cables are incredibly strong and flexible. Go ahead and bend that a little bit, Brian. Now they've got these exceptionally strong cable runs of up to 60 meters. That's 200 feet for us US folk. For Thunderbolt, and 50 meters, that's 165 feet for USB 3. It makes it so easy to move those components away without having to worry about destroying the signal integrity.
You could say with this wire, it's not a bad idea. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Wow. Okay. No. Actually, that was pretty good. All of these cables are hot swappable, and you can daisy chain up to 6 Thunderbolt devices. You can bend or walk on Corning's ultra slim cables, and even if they're tangled, they'll keep transmitting at top speed. Universal Audio, which is a professional audio firm, they rely on optical cables by Corning to achieve acoustic isolation in their studio when they test new equipment. Now, folks, if a professional studio, if a studio that needs audio perfection and still needs high-speed transfers can trust Corning, don't you think you can too? Instead of investing on multiple extenders, adapters, and long cables, turn to Corning to establish the connection that you need with one simple long-length cable. Their products are available at all major electronics and professional AV retailers, including Apple stores, Amazon, B&H, and more. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to try the Corning difference. Corning's cables are longer, thinner, lighter, and stronger. Go to Corning.com/twit to save up to $130 on Thunderbolt optical cables. This promotion is valid until August 31st or while supplies last, whichever occurs first. Just go to Corning.com/twit. That's Corning.com/twit to save on their unbeatable Thunderbolt cables. And we thank Corning for their support of Know-How. Okay, Smitty, I'm going to go ahead and get started on these LEDs so that you can judge me and make me feel bad about myself again. But before we come back to this, we were talking a little bit about badges. We were talking about the spirit of Defcon. I put together a little something to show you one of my favorite events at Defcon. If you're interested in sitting in the hardware hacking village, well, then maybe you need to be part of the badge hacking pageant. Every year, tens of thousands of security professionals, amateur hackers, makers, and like-minded geeks descend on Las Vegas during the heat of the summer to hear about the newest technologies, latest exploits, and most interesting research. For some, the experience is overwhelming, but at DEF CON, there's always a place for everyone. And one of my favorite places is the badge hacking pageant. This year, there were 3 categories: analog, past DEF CON digital, and wildcard. Let's take a look at the entries. A popular analog entry was the forging of last year's Uber badge, made by Grandmaker Lost and given only to the most elite of contest winners. No fewer than 5 individuals attempted to recreate the radioactive glass, custom forged metal, and Lichtenberg etching on the Defcon 23 Uber badge. For reference, here is the real DC-23 Uber badge. Most of these were created with the makers only having pictures of the originals, so this was no easy task, and all of them made decent copies right down to the iridescent marble. Other analog entries included this Defcon 13 badge turned into a lockpick set and a top hat made from last year's vinyl record badge. The vinyl badge was a playable record that had content needed to complete the Defcon Crypto Challenge and, of course, some pretty good music. The real treat in the badge hack pageant was digitally hacking past Defcon badges, and this year there were some pretty good ones. This is a clock made from a DC-23 vinyl badge, some LEDs, an embedded processor, and a bunch of tape. This one of my favorites, is a DC-22 badge with a wireless receiver, upgraded power source, and 2 continuous rotation servos that made a remote control vehicle. It used the onboard badge processor, a propeller, and was coded to speak PWM. However, my absolute favorite was this DC-22 badge that was turned into a rat's nest breathalyzer. Using an alcohol sensor, essentially a fuel cell, the team used a little electronic ingenuity to turn the analog output from the sensor into digital input that the badge could understand. Of course, it's not just DEF CON badges in the pageant. The last category was wildcard, which included everything else. This is a badge with a ring of WS2812 LEDs that can be controlled via a smartphone app. And there were not 1, but 2 Bender Bending Rodriguez badges that did everything from scan the wireless environment to giving Bender a cigar and the ability to display audio frequencies. In the end, the pageant is one of my favorite parts of DEF CON because it requires makers to create things on site with whatever materials they can find, borrow, and disassemble. If you ever find yourself at a DEF CON, take a seat in the hardware hacking village, ask a bunch of questions from the geeks around you, and get creating. It's actually a lot of fun. That was probably my favorite event. You get to see what people have been working on. Now, you could tell that some of those folks did some work before DEF CON.
Right. They had to prep some of that.
They did. Like that remote control car, he didn't just make that in the hardware hacking village. But the breathalyzer, that was, because I was sitting next to that team, they're like, well, what do we have here? And someone's like, I've got an alcohol sensor. Like, okay, let's see if we can make this work.
Wow, that's awesome. It's like the MacGyvering of just electronics that you can scavenge.
Right, and actually in the hardware hacking village, there's always a table filled with, you saw this last year, filled with stuff that people have kind of abandoned. So feel free to pull components from it.
Yeah, it's just like cardboard boxes of just computer components that people were either going to recycle, I guess, in most cases.
Yeah, or in our case, to make into.
Yes, and to make into stuff, yeah.
Your favorite event, huh?
Okay,
Really?
well.
Chopped liver.
Wow. Yeah, he's right.
I see how it is.
I see. No, I don't.
Should feel bad.
I don't consider the Darknet to be an event. The Darknet is
an experience.
It's an experience. An event is a pageant. That's where you get awards. This was actually there was a contest, right? You just announced the winners of the Darknet competition.
Yeah, we were actually a Black Badge event this year, which is not a foregone conclusion.
Wait, how did that happen? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Podger's all excited now.
Yeah, we were a Black Badge event. We presented at the large award ceremony.
Oh man!
How did you not know about
I
this?
didn't know
Because
that.
he had to leave early.
See, if your thing was his favorite event, he would have known about it, Smitty.
You would have known. I'm feeling the love, Padre.
My schedule was bad, and I should feel bad.
Exactly.
Wow.
See, that's what happens when I leave early.
Yeah, let's talk about the badge. Let's see what the thing does.
Okay.
So it's got the STM32. It's got the infrared transmitter and receiver. It's got the wireless transmitter and receiver, and it's got the display, and it's got the T9 keyboard on it. Right. So we have the makings for a full-blown computer here. The idea that we are trying to do, and again, if you've read the books by Daniel Suarez, this will make a heck of a lot more sense. But I'm trying to make a darknet device. I want to make a literal darknet. I want to make devices that can communicate with each other securely without relying on any other infrastructure. So the idea is that the infrared is used for key exchange. Once you're done assembling your badge, if you pair your device up with somebody else's over the infrared, that's the infrared receiver right there. If you pair your device up with somebody else's over infrared, it performs a cryptographic key exchange. They exchange elliptic curve public keys. And now you have identity information and cryptographic information necessary to be able to communicate with them securely over the wireless.
That's super cool.
And then the wireless module, this year we were not able to get the mesh network working. This year it's all just point-to-point broadcast. But the goal is that all of the badges together will form a mesh network and allow you to kind of IM, basically, with other people on the network and communicate with them is securely encrypted over this mesh network that we're building.
That is
That is the part I'm so... You're going to leave that in, or is that going to be taken out of the sort of dumbed down version of the badge?
Oh, we're not dumbing down the version. Oh, we're not dumbing down the badge.
You're just making it easier.
I'm going to make it easier to solder. Yeah, we've got some design refinements that we're going to do, but it's still going to be STM32. It's still going to have the wireless and the infrared and everything else. We don't have the mesh. We didn't have the mesh code working this year. We had to pull it out, but we're hoping to have it up and running by next year. The hard part's going to be that this is a dynamic mesh. Dynamic meshes are very hard to do. And so this is going to be kind of bleeding edge, see if it works. It probably won't. It's probably going to crash and burn, but we're going to keep trying and iterate on it until we find something that works kind of technology.
Most things at DEF CON crash and burn. The only question is, did you learn anything from the crash and the burn? And
yeah,
we absolutely
we crashed and burned pretty hard this year. We had a lot of rough spots in our infrastructure and things, but we've learned from it all, and it ended up working in the end. We had a whole bunch of players. I think we almost had 600 players. It was a lot of fun. We got a lot of really positive feedback from people.
Now I will not be able to be at DEF CON next year, which really ticks me off. This is the first time in 15 years that I will not be at a DEF CON.
Oh.
But I just thought of this. I'm old school, so when I see ABC and BBC doing panning shots in the contest areas, that just makes me cringe. I don't like to film because, you know, the old DEF CON was you can never take a picture or a video without everyone's permission that might be in the frame. And that's why, like when I was doing the badge pageant, you only see devices, or you only see the faces of people who said that I could show their faces.
Right.
What if we were to do a spot in the hardware hacking village and we did our entire special based on the Darknet? I mean, that actually might be fun.
We could do that. Yeah.
We could do that. And then you could be there. You could be the Twit's eyes, and you could pick me up a badge.
Oh, the real motive comes out
how it
now.
is.
Yeah. He just wants to use me for the badges.
Basically,
we might be able to hook you up, Audrey.
That would be awesome.
We'll make something work.
What, you know what? What if we had a Twit contingent? We should invite
like an
members of the
inside
Twit
man?
army to come and like be part of the Twit hardware hacking team.
Oh, I like that.
Do you have anyone working there named Angie Anderson? Because I might be able to put her to work.
See, okay, here's where this is why I don't truly trust Smitty. He liked the character of Angie Anderson. I thought
What?
Angie
When did I
Anderson
say
was
that?
horrible. You told me that like 2 years ago.
What?
You said you
No.
felt sorry for Angie Anderson at the end of the book. I was like, no, she got her just desserts.
Who's
Yeah, no,
Andy
she definitely got her
Anderson?
just desserts. I don't think I was the one who said that.
Who?
I'm defending myself on this one, and
You haven't-
might
you
be
haven't read
lying.
the
I
book,
don't
have you?
know, but no,
we
of
talking
course I
about-
wouldn't like Angie Anderson. She's a horrible person,
Daniel
and she should feel
Forces?
bad.
Demon and Freedom, Angie Anderson.
I haven't read it.
Have you not read these books, Brian?
No, I guess I have some prep work to do before next
Yes.
year.
Well,
Yes.
I can't be upset with him for that because I never read the Neil Stephenson books that you recommended.
That's true.
I downloaded them, so I have
All
them
right.
now.
You read Demon and Freedom. You, over on the other side, you read Snow Crash and Cryptonomicon.
Got it.
Get on that. Next time we talk, I expect both of you to have finished your homework.
Yeah, see, Smitty has shamed us into learning.
See,
yeah.
every time I meet Smitty, he shames me. He shames me.
I'm going to have reoccurring nightmares of like, I should be reading, not sleeping.
Shame you into being better people.
You're right.
Now, Smitty, so I sped up the process. What I did was I just went ahead and tinned all of one side, and now I'm just popping them on.
That's exactly what I do.
Yeah, and actually, I'm not doing the other side because if I want to sort of straighten it up, I can just reheat the pad and move it around a little bit.
Very true.
Okay, good. And I'm making sure to put these in backwards so that I'll have to desolder all of this. Oh,
It's part of the fun.
So
Always makes for a good time.
Our audience, every once in a while, they want to know how to desolder. I use desoldering wick. I also have a solder pull. What's your choice way of removing solder when you've messed up?
Solder wick. I cannot stand the solder suckers. I have never once had a solder sucker work for me. So I use solder wick pretty religiously.
I saw some other people that they would just use a wire that had rosin, a flux already in it. I didn't think I wanted to do that.
Well, solder wick, that's basically what solder wick is.
Yeah.
It's a copper braid that is kind of impregnated with rosin.
Wait, hold on.
Or flux is the more appropriate term.
Flux. Oh, speaking of flux, how did you like Influx?
Influx was good. I enjoyed it. I've listened to it once.
Yeah.
I've listened to Demon and Freedom 6 times.
Now,
yeah. So, by the way, for anyone else who lives in the San Luis Obispo, California area, if you've listened to Demon and Freedom 6 times like I have and can put Audible on 2x speed, you can listen to both Demon and Freedom in the time it takes to get from San Luis Obispo to Vegas and back. Just a little data point that I learned this year.
All right, I am going on to Audible right now.
I have listened to Ready Player One probably 5 times. I've listened to Demon and Freedom probably about a dozen times each. I've listened to The Martian over 50 times.
Yeah, I love The Martian too.
It's one of those things. Also, because Andy Weir, he's a really, really nice person.
You interviewed
He
him.
seems like it, yeah.
He's
I haven't met him.
so
But
down to earth. I was supposed to interview Daniel Suarez, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cancel. I'm really busy." And then
When
we
was
found
this?
this was like 4 months ago, 5 months ago.
Okay.
And then we found out that he was down the street at a bookstore.
In Petaluma? Or in San Francisco?
No, in Petaluma.
Oh.
They snaked them from us.
Well, I went out to dinner with Dan on Saturday night, and I had a great
nice.
time. Yeah.
No, I mean I love his books. I actually liked his Kill Decision. I thought
I
that
like
was,
Kill Decision a lot too, yeah.
Freedom is another one.
just don't do what my dad did. He read Freedom first.
Yeah, don't do that.
You have to read Demon, then Freedom.
Okay,
Yes.
so Demon's the first one. Daemon.
Daemon, yes.
Okay.
Who's the voice talent? Because he's actually pretty good.
Jeff Gerner. Jeff Gerner is an
that's
awesome
right.
guy.
Oh, I interviewed
Yeah.
him on Book Guys when I was still
Oh,
doing that
did you?
show.
Okay. When Dan Suarez was on Triangulation, Jeff Gerner was here with him. That's when Influx was just coming out. I was actually in the studio for that.
Right.
Coincidentally, I drove up to the Bay Area for something else that weekend, and I decided to go home late on Sunday and go up to see Twit. And then I found out while I was in Petaluma for Twit that Dan Suarez was going to be doing Triangulation on Monday, the next day. And I called home to my wife. I'm like, honey, I'm staying another day. And I'm staying another day. And I called my boss and I'm like, I'm not going to be in work tomorrow. And so I stayed another day and hung out for Triangulation and met Dan. And Jeff Gerner was there as well. And Dan and Jeff and I got to go out to lunch afterwards, which was really cool.
You know, Smitty, if that ever happens again, you know that you could always stay with me, right? Like Alan Malventano's coming over tomorrow. He's going to be staying at my place for the Intel Developer Forum.
I thank you, but my parents live just about a half hour south of you down in Los Altos.
You know what? No. You stay with me.
You get to see your parents all the time.
That's yeah. My parents all the time, and my sister who lives in Mountain View. You know, she doesn't have a guest room for me or anything.
Yeah, but I'm in San Francisco, and we have
That's true.
We have more Pokemon.
Yeah, have you played Pokemon Go there, Smitty?
No, I haven't. I'm not a hater, but it's not my thing.
I was actually very proud of how few people at Defcon were playing Pokemon Go.
We're playing Pokemon Go. I've played Ingress for a while. I think I got up to level 6, I think. And I just kind of lost interest because it's all grind. It's all grinding. There's very little story to it. There's very little character development or anything. It's all just mechanics. It's all grinding.
Exactly.
3 years of my life went to Ingress.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. He got me into Ingress, and I have remorse from that. All the late nights driving around to hit portals and stuff. And I was
It's
just
the same
like,
game.
Yeah.
It's the exact same game.
Yeah.
It's the same game. I like the technology, and I think there's a lot of potential. I mean, especially since we're talking about Demon and Freedom, right?
Yeah.
Augmented reality is what it's all about. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think we're in the very early days. I mean, this is Pong, right? This is Pong for augmented reality. See where arcade games went after Pong kind of opened the doors and got people thinking about what's possible, right? That's where we are right now. Augmented reality in the future is going to be an amazing thing. Virtual reality, I think, will be an amazing thing, but for limited scope. I don't see virtual reality becoming a generally accepted and generally used technology. It's going to be for certain niches, primarily gaming, but probably some other. But augmented reality is the kind of thing that I could totally see being generally applicable and just completely replacing. I got 4 computer screens in front of me. I could totally see augmented reality replacing all 4 of them.
The most interesting demo I ever saw was at the Wearable Tech Conference. No, it's not Wearable. The Game Developers Conference,
GDC.
where they had an AR set, the HoloLens, and they just used it to display virtual screens. So it was like your desktop, but they didn't actually exist, and you grab the screens and move them where you wanted them to be. I'm like, okay, I could actually see that. That's
okay,
yeah.
I want to ask you guys a question then. When do you think there'll be an AR or VR badge or incorporates AR or VR in the badges?
That's me in a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years?
That's
Okay.
That's Darknet for Defcon like 28, I'd say.
Oh, okay.
Let's do that.
It's on our roadmap as kind of. I mean, I am literally trying to recreate the Darknet, right? Read the books. This will make a heck of a lot more sense.
Okay, yeah. It's like.
But I am literally trying to create the. And by I want to make very clear here that I'm actually only tangentially related to this group. I got it started. And the best credit that I get to claim on the Darknet is that I got the right people involved and brought them in and letting them do what it is that they do best way better than I do. All the credit for all of the stuff that's been created for the last 2 or 3 years goes to other people. Crux and Command Code and Alvaro were the ones doing the badge. Zero Altitude and Fish and Command Code did a lot of the back end, the work on the Demon that's actually running the game. Samosa did all of the organization. Skyria and Sanity and Rune and Lunin did all of the story arc and everything. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on. We have I think we had 27 people working on the event this year. Gulo puts in just ungodly amounts of work on all of the different quests that he makes. A lot of it involves hardware builds. Black Halo did all the lockpick challenges. Gatorbyte did a bunch of the Wi-Fi challenges. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I forgot several people, I'm sure, but there's a huge group involved, and I've done basically, I don't want to say nothing, but very little compared to what they do. I like to think of myself as kind of the Flava Flav to their Chuck D, right? I'm the guy that's got the face. I'm the loud guy. I get up in front of the audience and I make a whole bunch of noise. But when the rubber hits the road, they're the ones getting the stuff done.
Yeah.
Very
So,
cool.
Smitty, we're like way over time.
Way over
time.
So just if you could, you got to do a quick judgment of what we've got here. I'm just doing the last bit of soldering.
Yeah, looks like you got all of them there.
That looks really good.
Wait.
I told you, man, you could do it.
It just took a few years.
No.
All right, that's it. So they're all in.
That's it. You did a great job.
Okay. Now there's only 90% left of the badge.
Right.
Well, yeah, you've done the hard part. The surface mount is some of the hardest parts.
Well, let's just finish it right now. Let's just do the whole episode.
Yeah, we have
until you finish it.
another episode to record today.
Oh,
yeah.
So we can't just do like a 5-hour long.
You're just gonna bustle on through for another 4 hours. 4 or 5 hours.
What I will do is I will make sure that I finish this for next week's episode, just so they can actually see it in action.
See the completed one.
And actually, Smitty, I got to talk to you because I have to find a way to flash the code onto the micro. Yeah, I may have forgotten to do that.
All right. Yeah, that's right. You didn't get it flashed before you left. We'll have to get you an ST link.
Oh.
You need a programmer for it. We had a programmer at the booth.
See, this is why I should always open the bag before I pack it into No, never mind. Smitty, it has been an absolute pleasure. Anytime that you can come on Know How, it's a lot of fun. We got to have you up at some point when your schedule permits, just to do some fun beginner projects, because there are always people out there who, and I see this at Defcon, who they think they can't solder, who think that this is too hard, who think that they just don't understand how they should be designing this. You are an inspiration to people who want to get started into the world of microprocessors and designing these. So again, thank you, not just for Know How, but thank you for all the work you've done at Defcon. Thank you for all the work that you've done in the ham community. Just thank you, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. That means a lot to me to hear that. I try to help people out because I remember what it was like to be a noob. It wasn't that long ago, and I had a great father who helped me learn a lot of the electronic stuff, and other Elmers in the amateur radio community and stuff. And it's I know how important it is to have a good Elmer. So thank you very much. It means a lot to me to hear that.
I know that you don't normally plug, but do you want anything to plug? Do you want to push anything out in front of the audience?
So no, I don't have anything official. I am at Smitty Halibut on Twitter if you want to follow me there. The Darknet, obviously, the Darknet is still up and running, so you can go to DCDark.net is the website. You can see the results of the event, but there are still a lot of the quests and challenges that are purely digital that you should be able to do online after the fact. One of these days, I may start actually recording more videos for Smitty working on something. So search for Smitty Halibut on YouTube, and apparently I've got a channel there. I didn't realize it. I started a hangout on air one day when I was just doing some circuit board layout, and when I was done, it said, "Here's a link to your YouTube video." I'm like, "I've got a YouTube video? All right." And so the next time I went to go do one, I did the same thing, and I've just been kind of posting these videos of me working on things. I haven't done one in a while, but I might start that up again. So check me out on YouTube if you want to see that, and then come join me on Hangouts. Follow me on Twitter. I'll announce it there when I'm going to do it. But I like having people in the Hangouts when I'm working on my projects, so I can chat with them and kind of get some feedback from them and explain what it is I'm doing, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh, again, we will have you back again and again, as many times as you can, not just coming back from Defcon, but again, folks, Smitty Halibut, Marc Smith, we thank you for being part of this episode of Know How.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being on it.
Brian, this was a lot. If they wanted to find notes, and we're going to put the links for the actual DEFCON Darknet badge, we're going to give all of the information that we have about DEFCON in case people want to participate next year.
Yep.
Where should they go?
Well, they should go to twit.tv/KH, and I think there'll be a couple of book links in there too to Audible, so you can follow along with the homework that we're going to have to do before next year's DEFCON. But not only will they find links to everything we talked about today, but you can find previous episodes that we have recorded and handy links to subscribe or download.
Yeah, and don't forget that we've got a fantastically active group on Google+. Just go to Google+. Look for Know How. There is an approval process, but that's just to get rid of all the cam girls and the spam accounts. Join up because we've got over 10,000 Ketas, that's know-it-alls, who are going to show you everything from the projects that they've been doing to asking you questions that you might be able to answer. And you know what? If you are a newbie, don't forget that we do have the DEFCON spirit there. There's no such thing as a dumb question, although there are many rude questions. Get in there, get active, get making.
Start learning. If you want to learn about what we do outside of Know How, or if we go to an event like DEFCON or Black Hat, you can find out about what we're doing on Twitter. I am at cranky_hippo.
And you're going to find me at PadreSJ. And hey, Brian, you know,
what?
There was this guy, I thought he was dead, but evidently he's not dead. And he's come back to be our director.
Yeah, director.
Director, not technical director. We had a technical director in Caracol, but now we have our director.
I kind of forgot his name over the time, though.
It's Steve.
I think it's Hal.
Hal, who you're going to find at Twitter, on twitter.com/ANELF.
Excuse me, Padre.
Yeah?
It's pronounced Kara.
Oh, Kara. You're going to find her at ANELF3.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballas here.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
And now that you know how,
go build it.